Hello everyone, this is a video to understand how to work with nested loops in Java. So firstly, let's understand that uh, in ICSC, we are using the nested loops which are mostly for in a for. So a nested loop is something like a loop inside a loop as we know it from the basics. uh, a for loop can have another while loop, or a while loop can have another for loop. But mostly in Java, it is in ICSC, it is mostly for inside a for loop. So for loop is nested within another for loop. That's why we call it nested loops. And here we are mostly using this nested loops technique to print a pattern. Now, the pattern as we see, if it's a single line, we need not have two loops. We can do that printing of a pattern in just one line. Let's say if only this line, we can do that only by one for loop. Okay, let me just show you that as well. So I'll just say, so how many x's we have? We have four x's in one. So I'm just printing the um, one liner pattern. Okay, so I will run the loop four times. I is equal to 1 to 4, I plus plus, and inside the for loop, I'll give system.out.println, okay, which is nothing but your print statement with an X. Okay, let's see what happens when I run this loop. You see that it is printing X's, four X's, because it's four times loop in every line. So what is the mistake? The mistake is over here, right? We should do without the print ln, because if we use ln, it will print it in the new line every time. Okay, now let's see what happens. Okay, so it has printed four x's in just one line. So what we can do, we can put a backslash t over here so that we can have those spaces which we wanted. Okay, let's do it again. Okay, so now you can see that it has printed with a gap over here, right? But since I did not clear it, so I'll just clear this and let's check now so that there's no confusion. Okay, there we go. So so it means that if I'm using a single for loop for printing anything, it is basically a one-dimensional thing, right? It's going like a line. It's just in one dimension. As soon as you want to print a pattern which is like a tabular format, like which has certain number of rows and columns, it becomes two-dimensional, right? So in that case, I will need two for loops. Okay, so as you see, this has four columns and three rows. Okay, so what we can do, let's put another for loop over here inside this for loop. So this is my outer loop. This will be called as outer loop. Okay, now then the outer loop bracket start. Then I will have another for loop, one. So now this counter variable I and this counter variable j, which is used for both the loops, should be different. You cannot use I here and I here again. You have to use different counter variables for both the loops. So now I will say j less than equal to 3 and j plus plus, because I printed I already. I printed x four times already. So now let's see if I have to put a three times loop over here for loop. Okay, so now this is my inner loop. This is inner loop. Okay, so the printing will happen mostly inside the inner loop. Okay, let's check what does this do. Okay, it has gone. You can see that a set of four x's is getting printed every time over here. Okay, in just one line. So what is the problem here? Okay, let's just run it again and see what is happening. Okay, so you are getting X is printing in just one line. There is no new line happening, right? So it is still a one-dimensional printing, or just printing in just one line. Okay, so what we have to do is, see, if you see the pattern here, after printing 4x's, you have to go to the new line and start printing again. That means the printing of this for loop, when it is happening, once this for loop gets over, I have to print a new line over here, right? So what I should do is, I should print a new line once my inner loop gets over. Okay, the inner loop is getting over here. All right. Okay, so over here I will say again system dot out dot print, and I can simply, actually I can just say this also. Okay, println. So it will print a new line over here. Okay, let's check it out if that works. And so here what happens? Here my outer loop ends. Okay. All right, let's do it. Okay, so let me just clear it again. Sorry. Now let's run it again. Okay, now what's the difference? What is different between our pattern and this pattern which we have gotten? Here we had 4 columns and 3 rows, but here we have 3 columns and 4 rows. So do you think we have done something reverse? We have done something, we have to just reverse something? Yes, we have to reverse these numbers. Okay. Let's just check the output first, then we will see what does that mean. So compile, and then, okay, there we go. So we got 4 columns and 3 rows. We got 4 columns and 3 rows. Okay. So it means that the inner loop basically stands for rows, the number of rows. Okay, you can kind of make it a rule that the inner loop stands for, that an inner loop stands for number of columns. So 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, because you're first starting with a row. So the first loop starts here, which is a row. So you go, when you say for int I is equal to 1, that time you are again starting another loop over here, inner loop, and there you start printing it 4 times. Okay, so that stands for columns. Okay, and the outer loop stands for rows. All right, so that stands for rows. So hence, after you finish printing the first column, you have to print a new line so that you can go to the next line. Okay, so why we are doing this over here after the inner loop ends? We're doing this to introduce a new line. Okay, that's why we are doing this. So this is the very basic concept of how to use a for loop for a simple pattern as this. So now it has 3 rows and 4 columns. Let's say the question says 5 rows and 3 columns. You can accordingly change these things here and you will get that particular pattern. Happy learning. Thank you.